Connor George, Micah Poston, Sammy Cosen, and Madeline Lopez. Students, if you'll come up here, if everyone will rise, they'll lead us in the pledge. Students, whenever you're ready, please fly.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, students.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens, if you'll call roll, please.
Mr. Spano.
Present.
Mr. Venters.
Present.
Mrs. Dahl.
Present.
Mrs. Dunaway.
Here.
Mrs. Heatherly.
Here.
All present and accounted for, sir.
Thank you. All right, as we move into the agenda here, first item on the agenda is committee reports, and we have student achievement.
Yes.
So,
Tonight, we welcome students from middle school. We have our 8th graders joining us that will talk about orientation, and some 6th graders who will talk about also some of the new renovations done in the school. So help me welcome from the 8th grade, we have Carson Robin, Haley Newman, Max Dunaway, and Allie Garlicks. And our 6th graders are Sarah George and Gavin Kronsky. Students, do you want to come on up and come to the podium? Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sarah George.
I'm Gavin Fronsky. I'm in 6th grade, yeah, and I think that 6th grade has been I've been liking 6th grade right for now.
Good transition.
And I feel that the 6th grade orientation has helped me because you get your schedule and you get to know like each place you go for each class before, so it makes it easier on the first day of school when you like go up to your classes and you know where you go next, and then you go to the next class, and it's way easier.
And so I really think it helped me because we got to know we got to see some we got to see some 8th graders, and so like if we needed help finding a room, we could trust them so that they could lead us to the right place. And kind of like Gavin said, I liked getting our schedules before the first day so that we kind of had time to study it.
What are your favorite classes so far?
Probably band and then math.
What do you got?
Mine's probably choir and math.
That's good. That's good. Great. So some of the 8th grade students are here to also tell us about some of the orientation as well. Do you students want to come join us?
Yeah. Do you want to sit down? I'll do 8th graders come. Thank you so much. I want to talk about some improvements that were made. So basically, when we came in to the middle school of 6th graders, it was like really hot, and for me it was like really hard to concentrate on my work with sweat running from all crevices of my body. And now in some parts of the rooms, it's too cold. It's like focus on what you're doing, and I guess that's a good problem. But Are you seriously complaining?
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that sometimes you have to bring a sweatshirt in the middle of August. So
Which is a good thing.
yeah,
Air conditioning.
But the air conditioning is like letting the middle school take in 6th graders with open arms and having a positive learning environment.
So I'm going to talk about the new windows. So the new windows in the school make the school look much nicer, and they are great for the school. The shades, like last year and the year before, a lot of kids would try to pull down the shades and like it would just they would spring back up. But this year they're a lot easier to like twist down and close the shades. Also, there are clocks in the hallways, and it makes it much easier for you to like see what time it is, so that way you know how much time you have left to get to your next class.
So I have like a whole paper. Okay. I said, hi, I'm Haley Newman and I'm an 8th grade leader here at TMS. The first thing we did as 8th grade leaders was 6th grade orientation, where we basically got in small groups with a few 6th graders in each group. We did a few activities with them to get to know how each and every 6th grader felt about 6th grade. We then showed each 6th grader around where all their classes were, so that they mostly knew where to go for open house. They then asked any questions they had about the new school year. Then about a week or two after school started, we had new student breakfast where we all met in the cafeteria and had donuts for breakfast. We also sat down with them and asked them about their experience, what they liked and what they disliked so far. And then last week we had Grandparents' Day where we helped out directing grandparents to their grandkids' homework. Thank you, and I have really enjoyed my time here as an 8th grade leader.
So basically, she kind of said it all.
She had a little paper person.
I did.
It only lasts us that long.
So the last week with Grandparents' Day, we kind of, like 6th grade grandparents came in to like eat lunch with their kids. And we helped them. We had signs that we hold up, and it had the kids' 5th period on it. And the grandparents would go there, and we just walk them up to their 5th period. And with the new students, we all kind of spread out in the cafeteria with different kids. And like Haley said, we talked like about their experiences with the school. And 6th grade orientation, I met a lot of 6th graders, even though I already know a lot. And basically we got to go see, like I got to see a bunch of teachers I've never met before, and I just got to meet them.
Looks like you got cool shirts too.
So do you guys keep tabs on any of your 6th graders, kind of periodically check up with them, make sure you say hi to them in the hallway, anything like that?
I kind of like see the people in my original group in the hallway.
Right.
They like shoot me a look and say, "Whoa, I know you." I'm like, "I know you too." And like maybe a high five here and there.
Yeah, make them feel good, make them
Yeah.
feel like they have someone they can go to. I think that was the whole premise of that whole thing. That's good.
So next year, you guys move up to the high school, and you're gonna be the low group on the totem pole. You know, we use a similar approach at the high school, and you guys will be paired up with some seniors or some juniors to you know, get to know and help you around that building. You know, hopefully you'll see the other side of the program and continue to see the benefits of what we're trying to do with this. Appreciate you taking on that responsibility this year. You know, I think it's definitely a benefit to the younger kids and gives them an opportunity to make some friends early in the school year. So, thank you.
We appreciate you guys coming out tonight.
Thank you very much.
Good work.
Now, don't sit down, it's a 3-hour meeting, you need to keep moving.
Release.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all for coming this evening, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry about this one.
Thank you. All right, so moving on in the agenda, we have the superintendent report.
Great. I'm going to start with just some upcoming dates. Several things wanted to mention. Just for our community, Veterans Day is coming up. LT Ball does a fantastic job. All our schools touch upon this, but LT Ball does have a special Veterans ceremony that they do down at Veterans Park. That will be at 10 a.m. on Veterans Day the 9th. And then at 11:30 a.m. for those that provide a RSPD reservation with with LT Ball schools, they are very welcome to come for lunch as veterans. So we want to make sure everybody feels welcome and look forward to that. It is an extraordinary day to really connect our students with veterans that we want to honor. Senior Citizens Breakfast is also coming up. That's a big event for our community, and that's on Monday, December the 17th. That will also be held at LT Ball. It's just a great place to gather, and that begins at 9 a.m. So we would love to see a lot of our senior citizens come out that day. Then I want to talk a little bit about our upcoming professional development on November the 19th. We'll have professional development across our district on that day. And we're going to be spending half of that day session with ALICE training. That is a safety protocol training. We'll do half our middle school and high school, and then we'll rotate, and then grades K through 5 will have a half-day session. On the other part of that, we'll have some math, professional development. And so Go Math, which will be K through 8, we'll have an on-site speaker and presenter that will be supporting them. And for 9 through 12, we'll have Raw Hill as well as Glencoe publishers that will be supporting that particular aspect of professional development. I also hear that there is a potential chili cook-off scheduled for that day, so that should be fun for our staff and probably a little competitiveness out there. I hear chili's on the menu for lunch that day. All right, and then wanted to talk about BIB, which is a Background Investigation Bureau. It's connected to safety and our volunteers. It's a new piece that we have put in place. And so at this time we have had as many as 168 individuals that have signed up and are being processed through this. They go online for this particular aspect. Once everything is cleared, it is a search. And once it is cleared and that there are no offenses that surface that would prohibit them from working with our students, they receive a letter as well as a card of approval. And so that is a procedure that we're doing now for our volunteers that are in our classrooms, or in our hallways and schools on a frequent basis, such as Project More would be an area. So that's working out nicely.
How long is that good for? Like,
1 year.
Oh, just 1 year, okay.
So we will do that every year for every volunteer.
That's my understanding.
So have you already implemented any steps for them to be wearing their badges with the lanyards?
Our lanyard, excuse me, our lanyards just came in. So we have yellow lanyards for our volunteers, and we'll have red for all of our employees. And this is to help our security and police department, fire department, all of them. They just said it's a quick visual, and so we're excited about that. Our IDs that come with our photo, school photos, those are just arriving as well. So we'll get those all matched up and sent out.
You getting feedback from anyone that's registered?
The feedback that I've received so far was that they thought that the process was, I'd say, quick and efficient, and that they felt supported and had access. And we've encouraged those that, because they are able to get online and put that information in, and do not necessarily have to have an appointment in our school building, but we provide that if they would like that. All right, October the 16th, we had a functional exercise, which is called an emergency management test. The first year you do a tabletop exercise, the second year is a functional exercise, and then usually on the third year it's called a full scale. That was conducted throughout all of our buildings as well as the board office, and we had as many as 20 people that served as observers and evaluators for that. We had our fire department, our police department, EMS, the EMA, and also a group that's called RACES, which is a group that is the ham amateur radio operators that do civil service support. So a great turnout. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to really have all those first responders become familiar with our buildings and the layout of our buildings. So even their interaction among each other, I think, is going to be a true benefit should we ever have a need for their support. So it was a good day, and even though we did a fire drill, it was what I would call one that was pumped up. Many things that were looked at that we get used to doing, that there are better ways of doing things. In some aspects, they created what I would call a fire barrier, so that students were not able to exit in a certain area. so that they would have to reroute, and that's not something that we do on a regular basis, but something that we will be working on, because truly in a real world situation, that could be easily something that students would be dealing with. Certainly always the accountability of all our students, and we look at the time that it takes to evacuate as well as the time it takes to really account for everyone. And also a busy day on October the 16th. We had our fall community engagement session that evening. That was held at Tippecanoe Middle School. It actually was a wonderful evening to give us an opportunity to highlight some of the summer renovations and improvements. We've been doing that at the middle school as well as LT Ball and the high school. But the middle school was a great place. The gymnasium's where we met, and that gymnasium floor has been refinished. It's beautiful. At the end of the evening, we actually provided an opportunity for any of those that had attended to attend a school tour. Mr. Southers and Mr. Lamacombe were there and helped us with that. But we really took time that evening to really look across the district in a slideshow presentation that Mr. Pfister helped narrate the aspect of all the renovations that we've been most recently doing over the summer, as well as some aspects of OFCC, that is our Facilities Construction Commission, and some of the things that we're doing with that, which I'm going to talk a little bit about here in just a little bit. Also our pre-K-5 projected plans, the discussion connected to that. We're looking at future meetings. We really want to keep dialogue open, and if we don't have one before, we particularly are projecting for one to be held in January. And we're looking at that to be at the site of Broadway Elementary, because that will be one of the buildings that we'll be looking at as we look forward to updating facilities. And that moves us right into facilities. I wanted to talk just a little bit about a great meeting that we had today. Mrs. Dunaway and Mr. Spannell sat with Mr. Stevens, myself, Mr. Pfister, Mr. Sagona in a meeting with OFCC. And in that meeting, we got some really good news, positive news for our district. The first thing is that the percentage the state share had been at 31%, and that has moved up to 35%. That is the highest that we have seen since I've been in the district, and that's been over 18 years now. So that's exciting to see that move forward. The other piece is that with our ELP, which is the Expedited Partnership Plan, they are locking that amount in for us, so we'll be able to count on the 35%. So that's huge for us and our community. The other piece that was a very important piece of this meeting today happened to be that the district will not need a state waiver for LT Ball. To keep LT Ball online, that's an important piece to us. We think that we feel strongly that building has a lot of life left in it. And as we look at a projection of what that new configuration would be, even the building remaining as a shared service area, and then having some additional space that would be new construction for classrooms, that we will not have to have a waiver in order for us to maintain keeping LT Ball. So that was a great celebration for us. We are anticipating a board agenda item for our December meeting. And this would be really looking at and improving a master plan that is connected to the State Facilities Commission. Once our board approves that, so we have some time to look at that thoughtfully, be sure that everything is in place and people are comfortable with that by approving that in December, January, the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission will have their meeting, and we as Tipp City Schools, if we are posed and have all of our documents in place, we will be on that agenda, and that would be our hope to be approved at that time. So things are moving forward there in a very positive way, probably the most positive they've been for a number of years, especially when we see the percentage and then some opportunities such as this expedited plan that's now come available to our district. Anything, Mrs. Dunaway or Mr. Spannell, you want to add to that?
No, just that we were really excited and happy to get the 31%, and then to find out it was 35. Just, you can't even explain how amazing that is for the community. It's pretty exciting.
So is there a possibility that could fluctuate between now and January, or is it fixed?
No, that is fixed for us.
Locked.
The percentage is locked in.
The 35%.
What we're waiting on from the state is, and they're waiting on from us, is our actual enrollment for this year. is those numbers play into the actual square footage that that they would co-fund. So once they've got those final numbers for the enrollment, we'll have a real dollar figure that they're willing to commit to at this point.
About 2 weeks, they said we should have.
So, but the percentage will stay the same. It's just based on how many students you have, so how many square feet they will participate in the co-funding program.
All right. I will move on to permanent improvement levy. Just want to talk a little bit about that. That is on the ballot for November the 6th. It is a continuing levy. It has been on the ballot and in place for 50 years. It's been there since 1968, so we appreciate all the support over all these years. That is 0 new taxes. It is 2 mills, and that is approximately $54 annually per $100,000, which is a property valuation. So that can kind of help community members project what that cost would be. But once again, it's what you're presently having because there's no new taxes. It's zero new taxes. When I just want to highlight once again what permanent means, permanent improvement, those are improvements that have usefulness of a life of 5 years or longer. So when we think of things like resurfacing a parking lot, when we have all these things such as refinishing a gymnasium floor, when we have a new chiller, our doors and windows, many of the improvements that you've seen over the summer come out of permanent improvement dollars. And so it's exciting for us to maintain our buildings. It's something that our community expects, but it's something that we as a district feel very important to be doing. And so the permanent improvement dollars are important to us, and we are excited to see and hope that it does move forward with this renewal as a renewal continuing levy. Anything anyone would like to add to that? Okay, so quality profile, exciting piece. You've seen this out in your mailboxes in the last few days. This is our second issue, and first, huge kudos to our communications coordinator and director, Mrs. Liz Robbins. She works diligently on this. It is a team effort, but ultimately putting that together is a substantial task. It does give us an opportunity to really highlight positive aspects of our district that go beyond the state report card. There's a lot of opportunities and a lot of great things going on in our district. I'm a person who really enjoys photographs of students and just seeing them actively in their settings, just enjoying the experience of school and all those connected pieces. So there's a lot of great information in here, but there's also snapshots of our students actively engaged in whether it's clubs or whether it's service projects, and working with the community. I hope you enjoy that. And I will say that here in the back of this, if there is additional information about the permanent improvement levy that's on board, that's also in there with some great information as well for you. And I think we're up to strategic plan. So any questions before we move into the strategic plan? A little bit later in the meeting, we will have a resolution that will be asking the board to adopt our strategic plan. We've been working on this for quite a number of months, and we're excited about this. And so we're going to just take some time to really kind of share a little bit about this. I'll pull up, and I know that I've got a couple different people who's going to help me share a little information on this. Okay, all right. So I will hand over, or I can start. Who would like to start? This is kind of the introduction. You'll see this. This will be after our resolution this evening. We'll actually have this posted on our website. So this is the introduction, and so I'm going to let our co-writers, we have several people here this evening, but our co-writers are Joellen Heatherly and Mrs. Katie Barker, one of our principals at Nevin. She is the principal of Nevin Copic Elementary. And then Jane Dockery, who is through Wright State University, served as a consultant. She's here this evening as well. But I'll let you begin a little bit with the background on that.
Well, the board has been working with the administration and community stakeholders and working on a strategic plan for some time now. And we're happy to have a draft to finalize and bring before the board, and happy to share that with the community. It started back in 2017 with the adoption of the mission and the vision and the belief values, and we identified the 4 pillars of climate and culture, facilities, academic and student opportunities, and stakeholder engagement. We found that there was a lot of information that fell into each of those pillars, and that a lot of areas that we thought were the direction that the district wanted to take to steer us towards the next 5-year period.
There's our pillars, all right.
Katie and I worked closely with Dockery so that we could work with each pillar team to start to synthesize and compress the information into action steps that would really help us define where the direction of the district would be. And by doing so, we were able to identify where the rationale came from, for why we were working on those areas, the steps and how we would move the direction of the district, and how we would then also measure that. And we were looking at, Jane helped us visualize 3 buckets, thinking what would we want to do in a 1-year time frame, a 2 to 3 year time frame, and what would be done in a 4 to 5 year time frame. Recognizing that we couldn't really work on everything all at once, and helping us to prioritize that. And then we also looked at strategic plans from other districts, and tried to use some of their formatting ideas and a way to present it so that we had an inward-facing document that would be more detailed and a lot more probably operationalized. And then we also worked with Jane, and she helped us to develop an outward-facing, do you want to go to that one? An outward-facing strategic plan.
So we call this kind of an infographic, and this is kind of an exciting piece, I think, because there's a lot of information that you could see on that document. First, I also want to emphasize the aspect of you see, even with what we had, it seemed like, well, that's pretty condensed because we've been working on this for, more than 10 months, so, since 2017, actually, we were beginning it. So, ultimately, there is a lot of breaking down and trying to make it as concise as possible. This is a piece that we have really seen other best practices being used as far as having a visual graphic, and I think it is a great piece to kind of pull it all together and see it as a totality. And once again, having our vision, our mission, our beliefs and values, our most current crest that we're very excited about, and then you can certainly see the 4 pillars, and then once again our goals, our strategies, and then how we plan to measure those.
I think in putting together the information, we tried to be mindful to make sure that the goals and strategies really then fed into our mission and vision, and that we wanted to keep that as pure as possible so that we were looking at moving our district in a direction that would move us forward and help align the values that we're working on together as a board and as an administration, and help our community understand that's where we're going.
Mr. Barker, anything you want to add on this?
Not really. I really feel like just an easy way to explain, sometimes when you look at this, it looks like a lot of really nice words that anyone can read and say, well, I hope the district's doing those things, If you pull up any district strategic plan, it looks like a lot of that. But I would say
the purpose, or one of the purposes, I guess, is that you have a roadmap and you have a focus and the things you're doing fit into that. So just like a teacher in a classroom, really great teachers can teach without standards, they can figure things to make kids learn. But when you have those standards, you have a focus and a plan as that child moves from kindergarten through high school. And so this is kind of our plan, to move our district in the direction. Things have to change. Sometimes you might need to, edit or modify as you move through your plan, but it gives you that basis. And, wherever the leadership is, it gives the leaders a place to start and to make sure things fit in there. So I think sometimes these kinds of projects seem big picture and daunting, and, we debate on certain words and things like that. But the bottom line is it's just something that we can all use as a resource and a reference and a unified focus, I think, for all of us, whether we're down in kindergarten or up at the high school.
Agree. All right, and then the last piece that we want to pull up is the implementation plan. So the implementation plan, just want to kind of highlight, this takes once again our goals and our strategies and begins looking about what the action steps would be with those, and really who's going to be working directly with that. An example, right now we're working with, in climate and culture, with the PBIS, Policy, Behavior, Interventions, and Supports. So we are creating, this is during this first year, you can see years 2 and 3, but we're collecting data and we're not limiting that just to student behavior, but we're also looking at attendance as well as their achievement. Our principals are going to be actively and are actively involved in that. And so what our expected results with that are that, an increase in attendance, because we're monitoring that closely and staying close in touch with our students, and that we hope that there is a decrease in what we call office referrals for discipline, because they're working on behavioral scripts and the aspect of really being explicitly taught, how we respond, how we react, and what are kind ways of working with each other in the school. And so this follows through with all of our different areas. You can see in the small screen which one did you hit?
Plus side.
Okay.
You can barely reach it.
Yeah. Okay. On the
Right though?
There we go. We got, so for example, when we get into our facilities, you can see that our expected results are that we're working with that expedited partnership plan with the state. That's something that we're working toward. And in each area, we've identified where we're headed and where we want to go and what we hope to accomplish during this first year. And then years 2 and 3. It's actually a 5-year plan, but as Mrs. Barker was saying, it is a living document. So things are going to grow and change. The district's needs and probably the state of Ohio's needs may shift and change a little bit in 5 years. So we'll make sure that we keep updating that and looking at that. Once it gets probably April, May, we'll begin really looking hard at years 2 and 3 and projecting these other pieces with that, because we'll be closing in, collecting our data from our first year and communicating that to our families and our stakeholders, and then we'll really get ourselves queued up then for the next couple years. And that just takes us all the way through. And so that's what we'll be looking at here a little bit later in the meeting, but are there any questions?
I have a question for Jane. I would just like to ask you, based on your experience, what advice do you have for us for what is next?
Well, I think you're in really good shape when you look at like the Hanover Research Group that looks at best practices in K-12 strategic planning. You're right on target. You have a vision that's related to the goals. You go back and read that vision statement, the goals are no surprise, they're well linked. A 1-year process is average for a school district. I know at times it seems like, wow, where's the end of this road? But you're right on average with the amount of time you put into it. We made an effort to avoid jargon so that that it's a community product and not just a product that only schools can interpret. And you had a highly participatory process, a lot of community engagement, which is another difficulty, a common challenge in other school districts, but you scaled that wall. So the next steps for you are the implementation plan is really important because it assigns who's responsible, what time period they're going to kick off and start to show results. Where plans fail is typically not in developing the strategic plan, it's in implementing it. And so monitoring this, having measures, and even probably doing more work on your metrics. Right now, we've identified the categories of indicators. But as you go through, you're going to start to get more clarity about, we hope to see the needle move 10% on something, or increase something by 20%. That kind of work, I would say, will help you maintain accountability as you continue to monitor this and communicate it. But you've done a great job of developing a usable, adaptable document, and that's key to success.
We appreciated your support on this, and I appreciate the board being very actively involved in this. Each of our board members served as one of the point persons, and they had a co-chair with them on each of the pillar committees, so a lot of great involvement.
I'd also like to make sure that we acknowledge the stakeholders in the community that participated in the committees and helped to gather the information, and we really value their input. Oftentimes, it seemed like there were more things to work on than seemed feasible in a year, or 2 years, or even 5 years. So, helped us to really identify those areas that we think that are important as we move forward.
Ms. Taylor's here tonight, and we were on the academic and student opportunities one, and I just remember our first meeting, it was really kind of funny because everybody kind of thought we knew what that meant, and then trying to put it down on paper was
Months
real,
later, we still don't know. Well, it took 18 months, so we all,
Right.
it's a long process.
So, thank you, everyone, and I'm excited to see the stage it is in this evening.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunter. Thank you, Mrs. Hunter.
All right, the next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. And Joshua Logan here to address the board concerning pick up and drop off.
Here or? All right, well, I see some familiar faces in the room. May have, I've had some conversations with over the past few months, and I live directly across the street from Nevin Coppic, the pickup and drop-off area. Some of this may be a moot point in 2 years, but I think in the interim, it may be a concern that we may want to address. Not necessarily any fiscal input needed, but just some thought outside the box that we've been doing for, well, I've been involved in the last 6 years. Beyond that, I don't have any recollection. I assume it's the case, the pickup and drop off for Nevin's probably been the case since 1955 or 1960, right? None of the staff, the principals, I've talked to Mrs. Barker on more than a couple occasions, the police department, the parents, the neighbors don't like what we're doing. There are about 20 of my neighbors, myself included, that are involved in pickup and drop off daily, where we have massive amounts of traffic, children, police officers, and it's not just for 5 minutes. Everybody thinks pickup and drop off is 5 minutes. People show up in front of my house 40 minutes before school gets out and park there, along with the neighbors, and this is twice a day. So you have to remember, school, I'm trying to get my my 6th grader off to school at about the same time that they are starting to show up to drop off their kindergartners and 1st graders. It seems unreasonable and illogical to me, but there are people sitting in front of my house at 8 o'clock in the morning to drop off their kid. 8:45. It's, anyway, back to my point. Nobody likes what's going on. And I asked that we put some thought into what we're doing here and why we are continuing this particular pickup and drop off. I'm open to suggestions and want to be involved in a solution. We have all of this property, we have driveways that loop around all these schools, we have staggered dismissal schedules for a reason. but yet we don't make use of those driveways. We don't make use of those circles. We don't make use of the asphalt that we pay for in those long-term budget dollars, right? Instead, the investment is on me. The curbs that I have to pay for, the tire tracks I have in my yard, the trash that I pick up. 3 weeks ago alone, I picked up 2 McDonald's bags, a kid's shoe, and a beer can out of my front yard, out of people's cars dropping off their kids. It's scary, right? But it's not just me. It's my 85-year-old neighbor who has dozens of people standing in her driveway 5 feet from her garage door for a half an hour chatting. They think it's fine and well, but if I were to come stand in any one of your driveways with 10 of my best friends for 40 minutes twice a day, the police would be called, right? I have to put up with that, right? Because I have no choice because of your choice. I didn't make the decision. I made the decision to live there. I didn't make the decision to make the pickup and drop off in a public area. That should be on school property. I, for insurance purposes, hesitate to shovel my driveway and my sidewalk, right? I take on the liability for a slip and fall injury because it's no longer of act of God, according to my insurance agent. If someone slips and falls on my sidewalk, it's on me. If I follow the ordinance and shovel it, I take on liability, not you, me. And it's unfair to me and 20 of my neighbors to take on liability that you should be bearing, not me, the tax dollars, right? So I've complained, said my piece, but what do we do to solve that? I've talked to Mrs. Barker more than a couple times. It's a safety concern for me because 2 weeks ago, week of November 11th, 2 days, somebody parked right in front of my driveway, got out of their car to take their kids. Just last Friday, the neighbor across the street, somebody parked right in front of their driveway, get out, walk down to take off their kids to school. We can't walk half a block to show our kindergartner or first grader how to respect people's property and the ability for them to escape. If I have to go somewhere, I'm staying home until somebody decides they're coming back in. Hopefully they come back and they'll chat with their friends or go to coffee somewhere else. How do I, as a citizen and 20 of my neighbors, get together and how do we solve that? What do we do to take that burden off of us as members of the community and place that back where it should be, which is on the school committee to do that? So as a concerned citizen, what do I do? How do I get involved? What petition do I do? What forms do I need to sign? What do I need to do to make notice, or give you guys notice and take action, right? I can talk to Dr. Kumpf, I can call Mrs. Barker, I can call your administration, I can come down here when I'm able to, but I've done that for 5 years, and it's enough. My neighbor today planted grass seed yesterday, footprints all over his yard. Because they're walking through his yard, his flower beds, his driveway. I don't have an explanation, right? I know my kids, I've talked to you, my kids have a hard time getting home from school because of the congestion. All they want to do is ride their bike to and from school. I can see the school building from my front door. But it's a process for them to get home. How do we solve it? Any ideas? Or just me just complaining? Because I'll tell you my ideas. We have a perfectly great door that's on a driveway on the northwest side of the building, end of a hallway, not the middle of the building, it's an end of a hallway, right at the edge of the playground. You have a U with a stoplight, just like your middle schoolers come up. Why can't we drop off there? Right now, some individuals are forced to cross 2 streets with no stoplights, and then they have to cross a parking lot where buses are coming in and out, and your staff park. So that seems to me a safety concern above and beyond my issue with my driveway and my sidewalks, and that won't get shoveled this winter because I'm not taking on that liability. Sorry for all your kids that are going to have to walk in the snow, but I won't be shoveling. But why can't we use that property and why can't we use access to those doors to solve the issue? Unless there's some other reason we can't use
I don't know
asphalt.
where you're talking about the U. By
Um,
the playground, there's no,
Well, you would have to come in at the stoplight and walk and drive through the parking lot
to the parking lot of the middle school?
in the middle school and then up beside the building. And that fence line that runs all the way along, yes, there are cars there, and it's access for the middle school.
For the buses. Yeah, that's a bus lane.
It'll be going through the bus garage, parking lot.
Our concerns are valid.
We usually don't really have dialogue to solve these things, but what I will tell you, it is a long-standing concern and problem.
Okay, then what do we do to solve it? If long-standing, I've been 5 years. Again, Dr. Comp, if I walk up in your driveway with me and a dozen of my friends, you're gonna be really mad really quickly. Not 5 years patient, 2 days patient, right? I've been 5 years patient with it, and it's a long-standing concern that's been around since the 1960s. That's 60 years of the same problem. I think it's beyond time for us to not just, me up here talking. How do we have that dialogue? How do I engage in that dialogue, not me up here complaining and then, we'll get around to it in 2 years. How do I have that dialogue with this board or whomever has control to change that in January when we come back, when it is snowing? How do we get that dialogue started?
Well, Mr. Logan, I believe you've done that today,
Okay.
right? Being here and
Okay.
addressing the board.
Okay.
You know, we're not gonna solve that problem tonight.
Right.
It's gonna take us some time to assess the issue, talk over it with staff
Okay.
and administration to see what can be done or what has been done in the past. So I appreciate your comments tonight,
Okay.
and I can assure you that we will be looking into the matter further.
Okay.
All right?
When,
Do you have an email address?
I do. It's just joshua.r.logan@gmail.com. Do I follow up with the board, or how do we continue to, I guess, engage under normal circumstances?
Someone, either myself or Dr. Kump will get back in touch with you. We just need a little time to.
Okay, justifiable, that's fine. Yes.
Can you repeat your email address?
Yes,
again?
it's joshua.r.logan@gmail.com. Okay.
And it sounds like there's other neighbors that want to participate in the process.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a petition, I can get every one of my neighbors to sign. I mean, the poor lady across the street, I worry more so than
85-year-old?
anything. She's 85, she can't hardly walk. And the neighbors, and unfortunately, neighbors across the street moved, but we kept an eye on her.
Sure.
But it's just getting more difficult to do so, and that's unfortunate, so.
Well, we appreciate you coming here. and speaking
Thanks.
on
Yeah,
our
thank you.
behalf. I've never heard.
Okay, that's, citizen comments. I have no other citizens here to address the board. Move on to president's comments. So, let me say, we are at the end of fall sports. Our teams have done well. They're in the playoffs. Been a great season so far for them. Kids have done well. We got our last football game this Friday. So that season will be over after Friday. The pretty exciting times with regard to our facilities, the community engagement session and the meeting today with the OFCC looks right for our district with regard to some new classroom space. So I would encourage the community to stay involved, stay in tune, and attend those sessions so that they can get the information they need to know about what's coming forward here in the near term. I would ask that you get out and vote here in a couple weeks. We have the permanent improvement levy on the ballot. We believe that that is something the district needs, and we're asking that you get informed about that and make sure you get out and vote on election day. that's all I have to say on President's comments. Thank you. Moving on to approval of minutes. Attached to your agenda was the last meeting minutes for your consideration and approval. It's the September regular meeting minutes. Looking for a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second from Teresa and Corinne. Discussion, corrections, comments?
I phoned Dave with some corrections.
Yes, Mrs. Heatherly provided some, just some spelling issues. I believe they all occurred within the committee report section. And we removed the student that didn't attend the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
And then we also, I went back and listened to the video and did update the wording on the parent organizations section. And also down under the superintendent, assistant superintendent section for the school and community events. I just made sure I got everything listed in there properly. Joellen, do you recall any other sections on that?
That's all I recall, Dave. Thank you,
Okay.
Ron.
All right. So those have been updated and you can, and those do match up with the video. So, just one note, I am adding a statement at the bottom of the minutes now that a video recording of the meeting can be found
Yeah, I
on
just
Word
saw
Docs.
that. Okay.
The one thing I did this month that I haven't done in the past
Okay.
is Mr. Zagona has added videos. They're hosted on YouTube, but he's been putting the videos on there. I actually went in and put the timestamps in the video, so if you go to any section of our agenda, there is a link to click on the video. It will take you straight to that point in the video.
How crazy.
And we're getting high tech, aren't we?
Yeah, we're getting high tech until YouTube goes down, and then we're out of luck. But so anyway, that is it is nice to be able to use the two together.
Wow, fantastic. Kudos.
All right, any other comments or corrections?
I'm so excited.
Hearing none, please call roll.
Mrs. Dunaway,
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl.
Yes.
I gotta get my alphabets again. Mrs. Heatherly,
Yes.
Mr. Spano,
Yes.
Mr. Venters.
Yes. All right, minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report, starting with the monthly financial report. I have a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Second,
I got a motion and a second from Andy and Joellen.
Teresa.
Teresa, I'm sorry.
We sounded like down here on the end.
I didn't look down that way.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
All right. Dave, would you like to maybe give us some information about the financial report?
Sure. Just one thing to note, there was a word that was cut off on the page with the graph. So the word years was missing near the bottom of one of the paragraphs, and that has been since added. Other than that, we have finished, what was that, September, which is July, August, the third month, so we finished the first quarter. And it's actually been business as usual pretty much. If you look at our comparisons year after year, you'll see that it's pretty much the same for revenues, expenditures. The only difference would be that there was some timing issues with the homestead rollback payments. So you'll see that this year and last year were higher than 2 years ago, but it's all timing based. So sooner or later the money gets into place. And the other issue, one of the large changes, personal services, which is salaries. We had a 3 pay period month 2 years ago, 2 pay periods, and there's always 3 2 pay period areas a year, so all just timing issues. I will add one thing of note. We have been seeing a higher interest in our Star Ohio account, and a higher interest rate. I did transfer some money over this month. However, I did receive a phone call soon after that transfer from Unity Bank stating that they have since increased their interest rates.
Let's just keep doing that.
Yeah. Well,
See how high we can get it.
yeah.
Good job, Dave.
So, I think my transfer was what killed it. They said, okay, raise those rates. Because that phone call came the next day. So anyway, things are going well. And are there any other questions that I might have, board members?
I just have a question under the revenue notes.
Uh-huh.
About the September open enrollment revenue was down.
This is,
And then how that relates to the textbooks. I'm not sure if I really understood all that.
oh, so open enrollment revenue, we did, we did reduce some numbers last year based on how many students we had in the district that are currently enrolled. And then, so the open enrollment numbers went down last year. Those numbers were still, the foundation money that we received is still reporting on last year's numbers. The first updated numbers will be presented in November. That's when all of the enrollment counts will finally be updated for fiscal year 19. The thing with the curriculum and the workbook money, we have not been collecting workbook fees in the 001 fund before. We've had a separate fund, the 009 fund, which is not presented in the general fund. Now that we're doing this new $300,000 a year for each curriculum, when we have kids that are paying for workbooks, we're putting that money into the general fund so we can buy them for those books. So you're gonna see an extra $10,000 in revenue that would have been in a different fund last year in the general fund this year, so.
So just one comment, probably not related to the report, but if our open enrollment numbers are down, our general enrollment has increased though, to offset some of that. Would that be an accurate statement?
That's what I would assume. I'm not sure what levels may have been brought in for different grades. We could have been trying to maintain a certain level for a certain grade, and we've just had different.
No, I understand that fluctuation. I'm just.
I would though say that that is an honest statement. If our enrollment is coming up here, then our open enrollment should be going down.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is something.
That correlation is happening, because that's I think what I'm asking. And then based on that, the way that this is stated, it implies that, well, I understand what you're trying to say here, but I guess what I'm trying to say is our open enrollment seems opposite. Yeah, it should seems like the statement's opposite. Right.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in November.
Yeah,
I'm
it'd be
expecting.
good to compare those numbers.
Yeah, I'm not sure what open enrollment did this year, but I do believe that enrollment in general is higher at the moment, so. Any other questions?
Well, I think what we're trying to say is we don't want open enrollment to increase when general enrollment is increasing. It should.
Balance.
And that is something that Dr. Kump's office maintains and reviews, so.
Any other questions or comments?
I'd just say that with open enrollment in this piece, we've been really watching closely. And I think that we will continue to monitor that because we do have some housing projects going on.
Great.
And so with that, we are anticipating more families, young families to be here and enroll. And but as we're looking at facilities, all these things, we want to make sure that we have the right balance of our serving our community. And it is a great accolade for others to want to come to our district, but we will be serving our own residents first. And so we have been monitoring that. There are once in a while a few what I would call pockets of a grade level that doesn't have quite as much, and so that's an opportunity. But we have other grade levels that are nearer at capacity, and so we do have to, decline. And it's difficult for families that want to come, but we encourage them as the house market is such that they might find something that hopefully they could come be part of our community.
Now that we have 2 new board members, I think this would be a good thing to have a work session on, because we usually vote on this like in April. So if we could do a work session, January, February, or March.
It's not about open enrollment?
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
I would like that with 3 new neighborhoods going in. We're trying to build this new building. I think it's an appropriate time to revisit all that, in my opinion. Of course, I've been wanting to do it for 3 years, so we all need that.
Getting what you want, yeah.
Have not been playing all
Other questions, comments? Call roll, please.
Mr. Ventures? Yes. Mrs. Dunaway?
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl?
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly?
Yes.
Mr. Spano?
Yes, that motion is approved. Next item under the treasurer's report is fiscal year 19 appropriation amendments. Need a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
A motion and a second from Joellen and Teresa. Discussion?
Just an FYI for everyone, there's a lot of, there's a large increase on this report this month from previous months, especially in the 516 federal grant fund. We did receive some IDEA special education money from the federal government. Apparently this is from money that we did not receive in previous years that we should have, so. Yeah. So Mr. Gingrich has been working to look into things that we can spend that money on. He's currently at a federal grant conference at this moment, so. That was the large one for $127,000. We also did receive a safety grant award from the state. So that is included here. Other groups, the softball, baseball, they turned in their budgets, so we're seeing an increase in the 300 funds. Any other questions or concerns that I might be able to answer for you?
Did we say last month that the application of the safety grant award is going towards the wellness program? Is that, did I hear that correctly? No?
Award, is that listed somewhere?
No, that was last month.
It's in the other column, right, in the changes from previous amendments, in the last column.
I thought I understood that the grant, the safety grant.
The safety grant is being used towards Alice training, I believe.
Yes, it
for
is.
the
That makes
district.
sense. Predominantly.
Basically, they gave us the money, now we have it, we have to spend it, and then report to them what we spent it on.
Sure, great.
And they have selected vendors to choose from, specified and selected means for that to be used. And it's predominantly professional development is how they want that to be used. So the ALS training is a perfect alignment with that. Since we've been working with our local police, went through the training this fall, as well as I had an administrative and teacher team go. So now we're doing a train the trainers aspect. But there is an online piece that is part of the preparation and the queuing up for it before you do it with staff. So that's part of what that will go for.
Any other questions, comments? Call roll, please.
Mrs. Etterly?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway?
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl?
Yes.
Mr. Spano?
Yes.
Mr. Ventures?
Yes.
That motion is approved. Our next item under the treasurer's report is the then and now fund for September.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion
I'll second.
and a second from Joellen and Corinne.
Okay, we had 2 items this month, just done before, just done after the invoice date. I have spoken with the supervisor, and we're gonna try to keep these down to a minimum. None.
Is that specifically varsity, female, male, what grades?
For the basketball
Yeah.
uniforms, I'd have to pull it up to see.
Okay, it's okay, I was just,
I wanna say that was high school, but I
I
don't know if it
figured.
was boys or girls.
okay, I didn't know if it, you know. That's all.
It's not Clay, so it's definitely
Okay.
high school.
I'll take them though.
I'm telling you, these must be pretty nice, I'm looking at the number. They're nice uniforms.
Yeah.
You gotta make them last.
Any other questions?
How many years do we use them, do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't either, that's just a lot. Yeah,
Yes.
we did all of them.
Yes, and sometimes regulations change.
When the
too.
varsity team's done, the next.
They go to JV?
The JV
Is that what
gets
you
it.
do, you recycle? You can tell my kids don't play.
Any other questions?
Yeah, yeah.
Call roll, please.
Mrs. Heatherly?
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway?
Yes.
Mr. Spano?
Yes.
Mr. Ventures?
Yes.
That motion is approved. And the last item under the treasurer's report is the 5-year forecast. We do this twice a year. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
So I got a motion and a second from Andy and Joellen.
All right, I actually have something new this time. You guys have never seen this before. Oh.
Oh.
You guys gonna put some up for me?
Look how excited you are.
I'm not really excited, I'm just
This must
excited
be
to get it
big.
done.
What do you have?
I just have a little presentation on the 5-year forecast.
I'm excited.
I mean,
PowerPoint this one?
pardon?
PowerPoint this one?
Yeah, I learned about, no. All right. So, yeah, I got the clicker, so I don't have to stand up there in front of it and touch the board. Things go bad that way. So I am presenting the 5-year forecast for fiscal years 19 through 23. This is the October forecast, and it's the first one of the fiscal year. I am required in 6 months to do an update to this forecast in May. Just one little note, there has been a change in the law, and next year this forecast will be done in November. Yeah. So I think it's actually 7 months from now, whatever the difference between now and May is. They changed it so there's now a 6-month break in between each forecast.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a little sense. All right, so here we've got the first graph. This graph is revenue versus expenditures in fiscal year 19 or not fiscal year 19, across all 5 years without a levy renewal. So we have a May 2015 emergency levy that was put on the books, and it expires in December of 2020. And so that green line right there is our cash balance. If we do not renew our levy, the cash balance, as you can see at the end of 2023, will be at 0. And so, well, so cash balance remains positive through the cash balance will remain positive through fiscal year 23 if that levy is approved. And let's see, go to the next page. Here you can see the change. So the red line that's going down at the bottom, that is if we don't renew. The green line is if we do renew. So we definitely want to try to renew that emergency levy. Expenditures will be exceeding revenue even with the levy renewal, because that graph right there shows the revenues and expenditures with and without the renewals. So the red lines are our revenues without, blue lines are our revenues with, but as you can see, the orange lines, which are expenditures, go up every year no matter what. Here's something else. The Ohio Revised Code requires that as a school district, we have a 30-day true cash days. Basically, they take all of our total expenditures for the year, divided by 365 days, and they try to determine how much money we spend every day. They want us to try to have a cash balance of at least 30 days worth of activity. You can see in fiscal year 19, we estimate that we will actually have a cash balance that covers 191 days. More than half of a year. But as the fiscal years move forward, by the end of 2023, we only have 50 days.
Right.
So we're above the 30. GFOA, or maybe it's OSB, I can't remember which group it is. They recommend having a 60-day, so we're a little short there. But 5-year forecast, it's hard to predict 5 years of revenues and expenditures, but we try. All I can tell you is that these numbers will change tomorrow.
Yeah.
There it goes. We do need, the levy renewal is the key to sustaining our financial viability. Here's just a breakdown of all of our revenues. As you can see, our real estate taxes are the biggest chunk. We receive 53% of all of our revenue from taxes. And then we have some state foundation money of 31% and little chunks in the end. So overall, we rely on our citizens for most of our funding, and that's true of other districts like us. Yep. New state budgets. This forecast includes 3 state budgets, and you just never know what's going to happen. Every 2 years, the state will approve a new budget. In the 18-19 budget, foundation revenue went up $10 a child. Back in 16 and 17, they increased $100 a kid. So they really can't cut back on the increases to foundation revenue. Now, they could go back to 100. They could do nothing and remain flat. It's really hard to predict what the state is going to do. And that makes projecting 5 years with 2 state budgets a little harder.
Yeah.
So challenges to our revenue, we do have a reappraisal coming up this year on our taxes. It's where the county auditor goes through and reappraises all the properties in Tipp. We're anticipating about a 1% increase. I think we're currently at $407 million, $407 million in valuation. We might go up to about 412, so it's not a huge amount. And we are seeing slight increases in fiscal year 49 for state funding. So again, I already mentioned the fiscal years 20 through 23 depend on 2 new budgets from the state. We are a formula district right now, which means we do get the revenues based on the kids that come to the district. However, we have seen our enrollment slowly decrease. I think this year is going to be the year it turns around based on all the textbooks that we ended up being told we needed to buy. But we're going to get to the point, if our enrollment did continue to decrease, we'd become a guaranteed district, meaning you can't receive less than what you had received in I think it's 2017 or maybe 2018. But you don't want to be a guaranteed district. You want to stay as a formula district.
Yeah, it's bad.
One thing that we might want to consider, I know we're currently looking at our PI levy as a continuing levy, but something else that we've thrown around the topic is substitute levies for our emergency levies. That way, as the construction in Tipp comes in, instead of having our emergency levies capped at what we approved it at, so say we wanted to earn $2 million 20 years ago, we're still going to be earning $2 million today. If we do a substitute levy, we'd be able to capture the construction, and that $2 million may become $2,100,000 based on the valuation of the new construction coming in.
Isn't
And
that
that
what
would-
Bethel's doing?
Pardon?
Bethel's doing that?
Bethel's doing that. I live in Beaver Creek. I know that Beaver Creek was successful in the passage of one of those. It's definitely something that we'd have to educate the citizens about. But this here is substitute levies for a continuing amount of time. We take the money that we receive from our citizens very seriously. We try to use it as best as we can. I believe, I think we use those monies to help pay for our students' education and also for the salaries for our staff. One of the things that makes a district strong is the staff, and if we can maintain a good salary schedule, we can maintain good teachers here. So, and those renewal levies, along with, if we can make those if we were able to make those substitute levies, it provides additional revenue that would grow with the district, which could eliminate the need to try to come back to the district for new money, or to the voters for new money sooner. And yeah, renewing our current emergency levies that we have right now, it just brings in the same amount of money every year, every time. Here's our estimated general fund expenditures for fiscal year 19. Again, this pie chart has one that's larger than all the others, and those are our wages. Our wages are 57.8%. If you combine that with our benefits of 20.2, you come up with a 78% wages and benefits expense ratio to all of our expenditures. And that's actually pretty good. 80 is where you start not wanting to exceed that amount.
Okay.
Here's just a breakdown showing in a linear form all of our expenditures stacked on top of each other. Again, the red line is our wages, and as you can see, those are our largest expense, and over the next 5 years, those get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that is because we do have a union contract that's been agreed upon for fiscal years 19, 20, and 21. It does include, so all of those agreements are included in these projections here. And other expenses remain pretty consistent. You know, they don't really change like the salaries and benefits do. We will, however, see our expenses continue to grow and outpace our revenues. That should say fiscal year 20. I apologize. I'll fix that. Fiscal year 20 is where expenditures exceed revenues. All right, where are we now? See, here we go. Expenses exceed revenues beginning in fiscal year 20. We are ending a period of relatively flat revenue unless state funding grows substantially. The other way that we can make that our revenues go up, if we were to receive more students, for every student we bring in, it's about $2,400 or more. And so it's really neat to watch in the Excel spreadsheet for foundation revenue, if you dump in a new student, if you dump in the students now, how much that affects us in 5 years, how much money that can bring in over 5 years. We bring in new students every year. So, anyway. Line 601. We need to watch line 601 and try to match, and what is line 601? That is our excess of revenues over expenditures.
Over under.
Yeah, and right now, 2020, we show that they're all negative starting 2020. Unless we can find other revenue. We should consider making our emergency levies substitute levies for a continuing period of time if we can, when they're up for renewal. Any questions that I can answer for you guys?
I had an interesting question.
No.
It's so random. Okay, so the $2.7 billion RDF, did the state give that to all schools evenly? How does that pop up?
That is not for the schools.
Okay, that was weird.
That's just the state's rainy day
Their
fund
own, okay.
for anything that they see when it comes to the next 2-year state budget,
Okay.
because that's where they're funding all of the state.
So it doesn't trickle down to us, that's theirs?
It
It would have to be
could.
an emergency?
So if something were to really happen that would
Right.
devastate the, let's say, income tax revenues that are brought in by the state, they could decide to apportion some of that money to
I understand it now.
groups.
It has to be something that they
They-
did.
they're in
Not
control of
something
that
that we
money.
didn't do right or budget wrong and
Yeah,
like,
that's just
you're
the
crying
state.
for mercy.
The
Okay.
state currently has $207 billion
Gotcha.
in
All right.
rainy day fund.
all right, I just wanted, I was reading that and I was kind of,
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money,
A lot of money.
Your comment about the substitute levy, because I really am a big fan of those too. I just wanna make sure that we all understand that a substitute levy doesn't require more money from the taxpayers. What it does is new houses that are built after we pass the levy, they pay that same tax rate, so it
That was voted
increases-
on by the citizens.
Right, like they don't,
previously.
like the citizens that already passed it wouldn't pay an additional amount. It's just for buildings that are built, or homes that are built after that. Because I think it's a really great opportunity as well.
It is, it's a way to capture growth for the homes that come into the district.
Perfect way to say it, yeah.
Any other questions? Again, overall, in fiscal year 2023, if we pass a renewal levy on that emergency levy from 2015, we will have a positive cash balance. But one thing that you did note, or did see, is that each year, our cash balance gets smaller and smaller. And that's how districts determine whether or not it's time to go out for new monies. And unfortunately, that is gonna be something that we're gonna have to think about a little further down the road. So, better to discuss it now than have it hit you in the face the next day, or 5 years from now.
Is there a way to capture the payoff of the high school in this?
That's
Captured it all? No?
2024.
Yeah.
And actually,
We've been doing it early.
that's not even reported here.
No, that's not in
We're
this.
That's not in this, that's in a separate fund.
Separate fund, this is just operating.
Jim, would you mind hitting us back to the scoreboard if there's no other questions? Okay. Thanks for putting up with me on that, guys.
That's good, that was a great presentation.
All right, there's no other questions on the 5-year forecast. Call roll, please.
Mr. Venters?
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly?
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl?
Yes.
Mr. Spano?
Yes.
I miss
Dunaway.
Mrs. Dunaway.
Yes.
Dunaway. Something didn't feel
Yes.
right. Thank you very much. I will be submitting this to the state tomorrow.
Good, that 5-year forecast is approved. All right, old business. Any old business? Hearing none, moving on to new business. Dr. Cohn.
All right, item A, approval of the following resignations as per the agenda.
Make the motion.
I'll motion.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Corinne and Teresa. Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Mrs. Dahl?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway?
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly?
Yes.
Mr. Spano?
Yes.
Mr. Venters?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Item B, approval to employ the following classified positions for the 2018-19 school year, pending proper certification and paperwork as per the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Andy and Joellen. Discussion, questions?
Has there always been a second grade teacher's aide, or is this a new position?
Actually, as I'm looking at this, Mr. Stevens, did you see this? I believe that there may be a need to adjust this. Do we have an individual that had stepped away? Did you?
Are you talking for these two down at the bottom?
No.
Is this not based on the new IDEA money that was received?
Mm-hmm. And my understanding is that this person,
I have not heard anything, if Galen mentioned it. So if we need to amend this,
so there was additional dollars that we talked about a little bit earlier. And at that time, that position was, some of those dollars for special education was being allocated through the federal grant dollars for additional support at both Nevin and Broadway, and it's a traveling position.
Okay.
And so there is the need that had surfaced, and then there was the posting of that position. I did a follow-up interview with the individual, and I believe Mr. Gingrich indicated that this individual, Mrs. Travers, has looked now at her situation and has declined the position, so I don't know if we can edit this.
Yeah, we amend the motion.
so that's.
So we need to remove Mrs. Travers from the motion.
Yes, and that's just because, as she looked at it closer, I think between travel time and some other things, that was not going to meet her needs.
As far
I
as,
make a motion to amend the previous motion, and remove Tanya Travers, teacher aide from the original motion.
I'll second.
So a motion and a second. Myself and Corinne.
Give me one moment to type up what we've got here.
Joellen had a comment.
Yes, Joel.
I just want to understand that we're just redistributing the food service workers.
Yes.
That's,
Same.
I mean, it's
Yes.
pretty
Yeah, right.
self-explanatory. I just want to make sure that
And we shuffled the deck and put them in a couple different places.
I had a question too, because,
We're actually on the amendment, so if it's related to the amendment, we can talk about it.
yeah, it's related
Okay.
to Travers,
Right,
right? So
Yeah.
I can ask.
right.
Okay,
I
right.
just want, the other question
Well,
was
her,
not.
okay, right.
So I just want to make sure.
I didn't know
we're-
what her question was about, so
Right.
you couldn't hear it at this end of the table. So regarding Ms. Travers, I think that we've had this discussion before, but we're still getting used to board docs. Whenever we have a new employee, I always request a resume. So can that just become board practice that we always get the resume with any new employee?
Yes, I will.
We're still getting
Remind.
used to it, because sometimes we get them, I always have to call on Mondays and get them, and you guys are busy on Mondays, so. Sorry,
Any other discussion on the
no, you're not right.
amendment?
I have a question about, is this a new position?
That's what Corinne asked.
It is a new position based on needs that Mr. Gingrich has discovered, and we do have the funding source available for this. And our aides, we usually, the new hires go on a one-year contract because sometimes we don't need them back.
I understand that, I guess I don't understand the process of adding position to the table of organization before we then post them.
They said it's supposed
I didn't know we were expanding the table of organization to add positions, unless we talked about this last month, which I don't think we did.
So there was a piece that Mr. Gingrich prepared that was in a Friday board update that was indicating about these funds that are being acquired, and that he was looking at, there's different aspects of ways to be using them, but the addition of needed aid support in a couple of spots. There's also one at a high school level that's needed.
Right, I guess I was under the assumption that we would acknowledge and vote on us expanding the table of organization based on that need, and then the posting would happen, and then we would approve whoever was recommended.
We do. So question about this position then, since that person declined, were there enough people that we can go to the person that Was it second, or do we have to repost the whole thing?
So, yes, there are several
Okay,
applicants, there's a number of applicants. And I'm just, I wish I had that email in front of me, and I wish Mr. G was here to
Right.
make sure that that is the individual. But
Okay.
since there's a question in my mind,
Sure.
that if it is not Tanya, then we will have her back on, and I apologize on her behalf, but I do believe that that just came through.
Okay.
There's no contract in here.
Any other questions?
Am I wrong? I think you're right. This is
Oh,
a contract.
Galen confirmed, she did rescind her application
Okay,
for that.
thank you. Okay. So I have a contract.
All right, are we ready to vote on the amendment?
This was a tough one.
Yep,
Call roll, please.
Mr. Spano,
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway,
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Yes.
Mr. Ventures.
Yes.
All right, the amendment is approved. So now back to the original motion as amended. Is there any discussion on that?
Well, I would only say, based on what Mr. Stevens is saying, if we're expanding the table of organization, there are costs associated with that. And I guess I'm not familiar with the process of how you add positions to the table of organization. I do remember that we received the money, that it had to be used for special education, that there was an identified need for it, but I'm just not familiar with what the process is to add positions
So,
prior to posting them and then approving them.
so what I will say, in relationship to special education, if we have the need that is documented in IEPs for the support, then it becomes a responsibility for us to provide that support. But I agree, additional discussion would have been a positive piece.
He's not here to explain it.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Please call roll.
Are we on a, we're on a,
We're on the original motion as amended. We voted in the previous,
okay.
on the amendment,
Get rid of
to remove.
We're still with Andy and Joellen.
Correct.
Mr. Ventures.
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway.
Yes.
Mr. Spano.
Yes, the motion is approved as amended.
All right, we are now moving on to item D. Approve.
C.
Oh, C.
C, changing contract.
Changing contract.
Okay. Approval to change the following step due to clerical error.
I'll move.
Second?
Got a move and a second, from Corinne and Teresa. Any questions or comments?
Let's get through
Call
this.
roll, please.
Trying to get there, apologize. I've lost something. All right, that was Corinne is the first,
Yes,
and Mrs. Dunaway is the second.
correct.
Okay, Mrs. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway,
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Yes.
Mr. Spano,
Yes,
Mr. Ventures.
Yes.
that motion is approved.
Item D, approve employment of.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I did lose something. Everything on item B that we just did is
Oh.
gone.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, well, we took out, do you wanna go over and make the
Andy?
motions and all that?
Yeah. Give me
Andy
one-
made the
give me one
motion.
moment
Take your
to-
time.
Approval to remove.
I'll hum the Jeopardy song in the background.
We're still happy to have board docs, so it's hardly ever happens, it's a good thing, we still like board docs. Just to be clear. In the old days, this would be like paper retyping it, and now it's on
Okay, does anybody recall the removal
here. Yep,
vote?
I made the motion, and
I seconded it
Corinne seconded the motion
for the removal.
for the removal.
Yep.
And then we went back without that.
That was Andy. Teresa.
Guess I always could have just looked at the video too, huh?
Right.
thank you for bearing with me.
All right, do we still have the changing contract?
Yes, we do, so
All right,
supplemental
so-
staff.
All right, item D. Approve employment for the following supplemental position for the 2018-19 school year as per the agenda.
I'll move.
I'll second. Got a motion and a second, Corinne and myself. Any comments or questions?
Are these any new employees or are these all existing? Casey back.
He's returning.
Okay.
I believe he's
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was on the other one because we got mixed up. I had a question on the next, sorry about that.
Okay, because that's
That
not
going back
looking
and
there.
redoing no, I was on the next one because I already read this
Alright.
because we already did this. I'm so sorry.
I will say
I'm
that
good.
Carmela Lammers on the supplemental
No,
piece,
I'm
on
good.
D, Carmela Lammers, she's been working LT ball with the
Oh,
Science Fair.
I know.
She's stepping up and doing the middle school, so excited to see that.
What are we on now? We're on.
We are on
Okay.
item D,
Gotcha.
supplemental staff.
Thank you. Yeah, okay, sorry. I was on the wrong one. J.P. Fowler, is that a new employee or existing?
That is a volunteer, then she's a community volunteer.
Okay. All right, I know Brad, okay.
Are we ready? Vote?
We're
Yeah, I
ready to
just
vote.
want-
Call roll, please.
Mrs. Dahl,
Yes.
Mr. Spano,
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway,
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Yes.
Mr. Ventures.
Yes.
That motion is approved.
Item E, approval of the following substitute positions for the 2018-19 school year pending proper certification and paperwork, as per the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
A motion and a second from Andy and Corinne. Any discussion or questions? Call roll, please.
Mr. Ventures,
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway,
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Yes.
Mr. Spano.
Yes, that motion is approved.
Item F, approval of the following game worker for the 2018-19 school year, as per the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
A motion and a second, myself and Teresa. Any questions? Comments? Call roll, please.
Mr. Spano,
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway,
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Yes.
Mr. Ventures.
Yes.
That motion is approved.
Item G, approval of Stacy Hernandez to be an ESL English as a second language translator for the district.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
And a motion and a second, Joellen and Teresa. Any questions, comments?
Is she also working with students? Or is she on an as-needed basis?
So Stacy Hernandez had served as a long-term substitute, and so she does have the ESL background. At this time, she's on a substitute basis, just one of our rotating substitutes. But as the need arises, she is available and very willing to be a translator for parent conferences and things of that nature.
So is that
Any other questions?
is that contracted then?
Yes, it's like per hour, I mean,
Okay.
per compensation.
Any other questions? Call roll, please.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway,
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl,
Yes.
Mr. Spano,
Yes,
Mr. Ventures.
Yes.
that motion is approved.
All right, item H, approval of the 2018 to 2023 five-year district strategic plan
I'll make the motion.
for you.
So excited.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, Teresa and Corinne.
Should've brought champagne.
So let me comment, thank everyone that was
20
involved
months.
in the construction and completion of the plan. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
a lot of work.
Let's do cartwheels or something. We have to do something big.
So,
So
thank you,
excited.
and I think we have a solid plan here to get us through the next 5 years.
Are we gonna give the, I like the infographic a lot. I think
Oh,
it's really
It
well
turned
done.
out phenomenal.
And is that something you're
So
gonna
exciting.
pass out to teachers, put in
It
buildings?
should be in every hallway, every
Because
office,
I
every
think we talked about
classroom.
somebody in the building had a poster printer.
Oh,
Yes, Mr. Boniface, middle school.
Yeah, and they were gonna
Bingo.
print it and maybe put it in the offices or some.
No, that was something different, but I
visual
love your
area.
idea.
Yeah.
We were talking about different
I
things.
think it's really well done. I mean, I could just be.
It should at minimum be in every office, like for sure, every office.
Actually, I think that's a great idea.
Cafeteria
Just
where teachers
because,
eat lunch.
once again, I think we've all worked very hard, and that whole thing of condensing it down, we don't want it
Yes.
sitting on some shelf.
Right.
We want it to be
Yeah.
used, and I do
Right.
think the infographic is a great piece to have out there that you're looking at, and it has the mission, the vision, it has our values, and then it has our focus, what we're working on. So I think that's a great suggestion, I think that's very doable.
And especially where the
They have
teachers
it in
eat
every
lunch, because
office.
you can just see it when you're eating lunch, it might
Visitors to our building, so they can
Visitors.
kind of know
it
what we're
needs to
about.
be visual. We're proud of it, we worked
It's
on
a
it
really
a
great
long time. Yeah.
visual.
And it turned out, I love it, I love that one-piece document.
I think so.
Any other comments?
That wasn't enough, you want more? Come
You
on.
asked.
There's nothing wrong with
Call roll, please.
Mrs. Dunaway.
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl.
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly.
Yes.
Mr. Spano.
Yes,
Mr. Ventures.
Yes.
motion is approved.
You'll make it the background for your computers.
Wonderful.
Well, you guys can stare at it too.
We can't
Because
all-
we haven't seen
No,
it,
not
The
you.
only ones.
Not you.
we haven't seen it enough the last 20 months.
Okay, right. Well, thanks, everyone. All right, we're up to item I, approval of resolution authorizing the purchase of competitive, what's down here?
Retail
Retail natural gas
gas.
service for the lowest responsible bid submitted to Southwestern Ohio Educational Purchasing Council for the period of commencing July 2020 and terminating no later than June 2025.
Go ahead.
I'll move.
Go ahead.
No, you go, we're just
I'll
gonna
second.
So we got a motion and a second, Corinne and Joellen. Any discussion or questions?
So I'll kind of clarify a little bit about this. EPC is our Educational Purchasing Council, and through their ability to bid and gather information, they are able to provide pricing that is of a great advantage for a school district. And so they are looking ahead and trying to get in place the natural gas piece so that we can get that projected and locked in. And so there's a resolution really authorizing them to really do this competitive piece to try to get that lowest cost. And as I talked with Mr. Pfister and our Director of Services just about the use of natural gas, it would definitely benefit our district. There are a number of things that we do use natural gas for within the district.
I will add, as a member of the EPC, we are a voting member. We need to submit this so that they can count us, that it's okay to go out to bid. This does not mean that we're buying the gas from the EPC at this time.
We're just letting them take RFPs or RFPs.
We're saying
whatever
you
call it,
can,
yes.
we're a board member stating that you can go out and bid.
Awesome.
All right, call roll, please.
Mrs. Dahl,
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly,
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway.
Yes.
Mr. Spano,
Yes,
Mr. Ventures.
Yes.
that motion is approved.
Right, item J, approval of resolution declaring transportation impractical as per the agenda.
Need a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second, Andy and Joellen. Any questions?
I didn't see a dollar amount associated with this, did anybody else?
There isn't a dollar amount.
Okay.
What will happen is the state provides a,
Okay.
they,
rate.
they
Is that how that
provide a
works?
rate, yes.
It's called an in lieu of payment.
Okay.
Yeah, we had one of those.
I believe it's
a couple months ago.
$250 right now.
2 months ago, we had another one.
Right.
It did, and then this one came up.
It was different so far.
Any other questions or comments? Call roll, please.
Mr. Ventures?
Yes.
Mrs. Heatherly?
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway?
Yes.
Mr. Spano?
Yes, that motion is approved. Miscellaneous?
Miscellaneous A, we have our first reading of the new revised and deleted policies and guidelines. I know that Mr. Sagona kind of helped us quite a bit by showing that, you know, we can get online and look at those that are deleted, so we have the ability to see that. There are a few things in there, I mean, it is quite sizable, this is our first reading, so as you kind of delve in it more deeply, if there's questions you have, make sure that you let me know. and so that I can try to get information back to you about that or help clarify. There's one that is concerning House Bill 318, and it is connected to discipline and behavior. And on that particular piece, it does indicate, which is a change, that students that do undergo expulsion as of November the 2nd, that they are able to do their homework and their assessments when they are, So that is suspension. Suspension, not expulsion, suspension, thank you. Under
Suspension, not
suspension,
expulsion.
Right, they can do their homework now.
yeah.
So do you want some of our questions now? Do we need to make a motion? I mean,
This
This
is,
is just a statement of first read. We will have at the next board meeting a motion to approve. If you've got questions or comments between now and the next meeting, find and get hold of Dr. Gumpin and express those. All right. Upcoming meetings. We have a tri-agency meeting next Monday. We are the host. The meeting will be here, beginning at 6 p.m. We have the OSBA conference to be held November 11th through the 13th. We have a work session planned for November 19th at the Board of Education, beginning at 6 p.m. And we have our next regular board meeting on November 26th, here on Monday at 6:30. So those are our agendas or meeting notices for the next month. There's nothing else under miscellaneous. I need a motion to adjourn to executive session. We have 2 items under executive session. Consider the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or official, and also to consider the discipline of a public employee or official. Need a motion to go into executive session for that purpose.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second from Andy and Teresa. I do not anticipate action as a result of executive session, although we may call a special meeting sometime in the next week after this executive session for further action, but nothing tonight. Please call roll.
Mr. Ventures?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunaway?
Yes.
Mrs. Dahl?
yes.
Mrs. Heatherly?
Yes.
Mr. Spano?
Yes, that motion is approved. So we'll take about a 5-minute recess, and then we'll reconvene for executive session. Thank you.
Get your